Woman with defective bleeding is of different types. Now we're talking about this type, al-mumayyiza, the discerning woman. The woman who can tell the difference between her menstrual blood and her sickness blood. How is that? Without me rereading all of the words here. She can tell the difference between the menstrual bleeding and the sickness bleeding if she can see or tell the difference between strong blood and weak blood. That's one thing. And also that strong blood, which is really the menses, if she's a discerning woman, and the weak blood, which is the purity, if she's truly a discerning woman. The strong blood will fall in the days of menses, and the weak blood will fall in the days of purity. So, is it possible that a woman would see strong blood and weak blood, but they don't line up with the days of menses and purity? Yes. So, would she be a discerning woman then because she can see strong blood and weak blood? No. Seeing strong blood and weak blood is not enough alone to be a discerning woman. It also has to line up with the days properly because the minimum of menses is 24 hours inside of 15 days. The maximum of menses is 15 days. The minimum of purity is 15 days. So these are the days we have to work with. 24 hours inside of 15 days for strong blood, and not less than 15 days for weak blood. And that's if the bleeding doesn't stop at all. She could be a discerning woman while the bleeding does stop. Sometimes she's a discerning woman and the bleeding stops, meaning she has menses bleeding and she has sickness bleeding and it stops. Not necessarily in that order, though. And sometimes she's a discerning woman and she has strong bleeding and weak bleeding and it doesn't stop. But it does coincide with the days. So that's why she's discerning. And then, like we just said, she could possibly see strong blood and weak blood, but it doesn't line up with the days right. So then she won't be a discerning woman, although she sees the difference between those bleedings. Okay. And we also said that strength is by color, thickness, or odor. Color, thickness, or odor, not the amount that comes out. The amount that comes out is not the strength or the weakness. We even said it could be that she has darker blood, but it's a little bit, and then she has lighter blood, but it's a lot. So which one is stronger? The darker blood. You know the colors of menses: black, red, pink, yellow, and murky. All of them having shades. And their strength is in that order. You should know that by now if you've been studying with us. So put that on your list if you don't know that by now. To know it today, it's only 5 things. So now let's look at these examples again. The author says, may Allah have mercy upon her. An example of a distinguishing woman is a woman experiencing strong blood for 10 days, followed by weak blood for 15 days, followed by strong blood for 10 days. Here, it is said that the conditions of distinguishing are fulfilled. So she considers the first 10 days menstruation and the 15 days that followed as defective bleeding, and the last 10 days as menstruation. Those 15 days in which she saw weak blood were actually purity between 2 menstruations. So here we are. On day 1, she says this is menses. On day 11, she says it changed, but it's still menses because it's not 15 days. On day 16, she says, this day for sure is not menses. And according to the rules, then, my menses was over. Yani, my menses lasted 10 days only. Despite my norm, let's say her norm was only 7 days, doesn't matter here. Because she's a discerning woman. And then on the 26th, she's going to see that the blood went dark again. So she's going to count and say, so wait, when did it turn light? That was the 11th. How many days between the 11th and now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Oh, wow. This 26th day is my menses. Bleeding never stopped. As for if she saw 10 days of strong blood, followed by 10 days of weak blood, followed by 10 days of strong blood, then she is not considered fulfilling the conditions of being a discerning woman. Yani, she's not a discerning woman just because she sees strong blood and weak blood. That's not enough. This is because the two strong bleedings were not separated by the least of purity, which is 15 days. Yani, she saw strong bleeding and she saw weak bleeding, but it has to line up with the days properly. So since that didn't happen here, let's see. On day 1, she's going to say, this is menses. On day 11, she's going to say it changed and still menses. On day 16, she's going to say, this is for sure not menses. So then she's going to say, okay, my menses went for 10 days. But then on day 21, it got dark again. So now, how many days was that between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days of light bleeding only? That's not enough to be purity because purity has to be 15 days at least. What is this? She's confused right now. On a personal level, that is. There's technically a woman called a confused woman, al-mutahayyira. Right now, in this scenario here, she's confused. What's the rule here? The author says the ruling for this case will come. So, subhanallah, now what's going to happen? If we're confused, we need to ask. But now we're studying, of course, so. But if you got stuck there, then what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to ask. In case the blood does not flow continuously, such as by her seeing strong blood, then weak blood, then it stops. It is not a condition for the weak blood to be at least 15 days. Hence, if a woman experiences black blood for 10 days, followed by red blood for 10 days, then the bleeding stopped. It is then considered that she is a discerning woman, and that the black is her menstrual blood, and the red is defective blood. In this case, the woman is considered discerning, although the weak blood was less than 15 days, because the bleeding stopped and was not followed by any strong bleeding. So she is a discerning woman here. On day 1, she's going to say this is menses. On day 11, she's going to take note that it changed. And on day 16, she's going to know for sure that wasn't menses. So she's going to judge that her menses lasted for 10 days here when she backtracks. And then when her when her bleeding stops on the 20th, then khalas, there's no issue here. She maintains that judgment that she had, that her menses was 10 days. And when we say about the discerning woman, the strong blood is menstruation, this includes weak blood or cleanliness that comes within it. This includes weak blood or cleanliness that comes within it, and weaker blood that comes after it if both types of blood are suitable to be considered blood of menstruation together. So what we're talking about here is now, what if she saw 3 colors? Or, yes, 3 colors. Then it's easy. If 2 of those colors together can be the menses and they're strong, then that's the menses. And then the rest is sickness, bleeding. An example of the first case, weaker blood between strong bleedings, is if the woman sees 3 days of black blood, followed by a day of red blood, followed by a day of black blood, followed by yellow blood that continued beyond 15 days. She judges the first 5 days as menstruation and the rest is defective blood. So here, 3 colors. 2 of those colors are able to be menses together, but it goes past 15 days. Then those 2 that are stronger, both of them, and they both fit inside menses days, that's the menses. And then the rest is the weakness. The rest is the sickness blood. So on day 1, she says this is menses. On day 4, she takes note that it changes. And then day 5, that it came back strong again. She takes note, but she says still menses. Got weaker, then stronger. Then on day 6, she takes note that it got weak again. Even weaker. Now it's yellow. But it's still menses, according to the rule. Until she gets to day 16. Then she's going to say, this day 16 for sure is not menses. And then she's going to say, so according to the rule I learned, so I had strong bleeding with a weaker bleeding, but then a stronger bleeding, and then a weaker bleeding that's weaker than both of those 2 before. And those 2 that were stronger are together able to be menses. So that's the menses, 5 days. And the rest is sickness, bleeding. Hence, the black blood with the red that came within is considered menstruation. The example of the second case is if she sees 1 day of black blood, then it stops. Then 1 day of black blood, meaning that's cleanliness between strong bleedings. Cleanliness here, that's called naqa. Naqa. Here, I didn't want to give too much to the Arabic words, but this one's important. Naqa, as opposed to tuhur, 2 different words. They mean the same thing in Arabic language, actually. Naqa means tuhur or tahara. But here we're using them differently. When a woman is menstruating, but the menses pauses, and the judgment of that time, that intermission, when the judgment of that intermission is that it's menses, then we're going to call that naqa, not tuhur, cleanliness. But really she's on menses. But when the menses is gone, we're going to call that tuhur, even if she had sickness bleeding. Even if she had sickness bleeding, she's in tuhur. So, the example of the second case is if she sees 1 day of black blood, then it stops. Then 1 day of black blood, so that's cleanliness between strong bleedings, naqa, between strong bleedings, not tuhur. So tuhur is purity or being pure. Naqa is cleanliness. That's how we're going to use those words. Yes, yani, I don't know if I can say it more clearly, but I'll repeat myself, which is that Bismillah. Sometimes a woman is menstruating, and then, like it could be 24 hours of menses inside of 15 days. That means the bleeding is on and off. Once she gets to 24 hours inside of 15 days, let's say it took her 3 days or 4 days to accumulate 24 hours of bleeding. So once the 24 hours is accumulated inside of 15 days, then she knows that all of those days were menses, all of them. So what do we call the paused bleeding in between? If it's all menses, what's that pause in between of bleeding? That's called naqa. We're going to call that cleanliness, like a technical term. So when she's in her naqa, she's still menstruating. In this cleanliness moments, These moments, these hours of cleanliness is still menstruation, as opposed to when she's not menstruating. Then that's called tuhur. Tuhur, purity. We're going to call that purity. Even if she had sickness bleeding, she's in a state of tuhur, purity. So she can pray and fast, etc. So there's naqa and there's tuhur. Naqa is the non-bleeding time while she's menstruating. Yani, the bleeding paused while she's menstruating. So she is menstruating. Her prayers and fasting are not valid during the naqa, cleanliness, because she's menstruating. And the tuhur is when she's not menstruating. Now her prayers and fasting, that's all valid, even if she had sickness bleeding. And she can have sexual intercourse with her husband because she's in tuhur. She's not in menses. Is that clear? Can we say no bleeding for the term naqa? Yes, I think you can. So because we usually use the term cleanliness when she is in tuhur. I don't personally. When I give my lessons, I separate those. Because it's the same thing when we talk about istinja. When a person makes istinja by wiping without using any water, doesn't it leave a trace that can only be removed by water or small pieces of clay? So it's not really tahir, really, but it is naqi. It's been cleaned or cleared, if you want. Or maybe clear. If clear is easier for you than clean, maybe that works. Ameen wa fikum.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
So now we can say that I understand it, that you said that instead of saying it's clean, you're saying that it's clear now for that word nakal.
If you want to.
It seemed more clear to me.
Okay, I think it is more clear, to be honest with you. But I had been saying clean.
Clear, all right. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so the example of the second case is if she sees 1 day of black blood, then it stops, pauses. Then 1 day of black blood again. So that's being clear between strong bleedings. Then she sees red blood past the 15 days. She considers the first 3 days as menstruation and the rest as defective. So here's our example. First day, she's going to say this is menses. Second day, she's going to say, I need to take a ghusl because I had 24 hours of bleeding. And then it stopped. Now, she might even say for the first few hours, let me wait to see if it's going to come back. But when the end of the next prayer time or the current prayer time starts getting tight, she's going to say, I can't relax anymore. Time to hurry up and take a ghusl and pray. I don't know if this bleeding is going to come back. So then on this second day, she's going to be doing whatever she has to do, like prayers or fasting. Then on day 3, the bleeding comes back and it's still black. So she's going to say, oh, now I know that I was still menstruating on the second day. I was just merely clear on that day. Then on the 4th day, she's going to take note that it changed. And she's going to still say it's menses. Then on the 16th day, she's going to know that for sure she's not in menses. And she's going to count the first 3 days as menses only, and the rest is sickness bleeding. Because the strong bleedings with the intermission in between are all possibly menses. So that's her menses regardless of her norm. Let's say her norm is to bleed for 7 days. Her norm still has no consideration in all of what we've been talking about. The example of the third case, a woman sees 3 days of black blood, followed by 3 days of red blood, followed by pink blood until it passed 15 days. Let me read that again. The example of the third case, a woman sees 3 days of black blood, followed by 3 days of red blood, followed by pink blood until it passed 15 days. Here, the black and red blood are considered menstruation because both together are suitable to be considered menses. They do not exceed 15 days, and the pink is considered as defective. Here's our diagram. Day 1, she's saying, this is menses. Day 4, she takes note that it changed and says it's still menses. Day 7, she takes note that it changed, got even weaker, says it's still menses. And on day 16, she's going to say, this can't be menses. And then she's going to see, out of these 3 colors, were 2 of them stronger and possibly menses? Yes, the first 6 days. Then that was the menses, and the rest is sickness bleeding. As for if she saw 7 days of black blood, for example, followed by 10 days of red blood, followed by 10 days of yellow, it is not possible to consider the red as menstruation with the black, because the red together with the black exceed 15 days. In such an instance, the black blood alone will be her menstruation only, and the rest is defective. Here, day 1, she's going to say this is menses. All of this because she doesn't know the future, of course. So she doesn't know what's going to happen. Day 1, she says this is menses. Day 8, she's going to take note that it changed, got weaker. Day 16, she's going to say this can't be menses. So then she's going to backtrack on that day of hers, and she's going to say, my menses went to day 7. Then, because she learned, she's going to still keep track. And then she's going to see day 18, it changed again. Although now she thought she figured out her menses. When it changed on day 18, then she had to recalculate. She said, this one is even weaker. So can the black and red blood together be the menses? Not both of them together. That's too much. Goes past 15. And can it be just the red? Can't be just the red because the stronger blood's going to be menses. It's not going to be the yellow because I had black and red. Both of those are stronger than yellow. It changed on the 18th. She had to figure it out there. She got confused for a second. They said, oh yeah, I'm still good. I don't have to change anything. It was the 7th. Wow, the blood changed up on me. Okay. Then the author says, moreover, the strong blood might appear before the weak, and it might come after or come in the middle. So, like we said last week, all of the scenarios that we've covered so far have presented the stronger blood before the weaker blood. Then someone might be deluded to think that menses always comes first, and that's not the case. The example of the first is what has already been presented. Meaning, we already gave examples of menses coming first and then sickness bleeding coming second. What are our cases? Strong blood might appear before the weak, that's 1. Might come after, that's 2. Or might come in the middle, 3. So we have 3 cases. First case, we've covered it with several examples. That the strong blood appeared before the weak. What about coming after? The example of the second case is if a woman experiences pink blood for 10 days, followed by 7 days of black blood. Here she judges the black as menstruation and the pink as defective. So here she is on day 1. She says, this is menses. She doesn't know the future. What's going to happen? On day 11, she's going to take note that it changed, but got stronger actually. And since she has acquired the knowledge, now she's going to suspect that maybe actually her sickness bleeding came first. Now she's weak here. She might be confused. How did it get stronger? But if she's not weak here, then she won't get confused. Inshallah, she'll say, oh, this just got stronger, but still inside 15 days. As long as it stops inside of 15 days, doesn't matter. Once it got to 16 days and she saw that it didn't stop, then she's going to say, this can't all be menses, but I'm going to judge that this is now menses. And my menses didn't start until the 11th, actually. And that the first 10 days were sickness bleeding. The example of the third case is if a woman saw red blood for 10 days, followed by 10 days of black blood, followed by 10 days of red blood, then she considers only the black blood her menstruation. So on day 1, she says, this is menses. On day 11, she says, oh, it got stronger. Huh. Well, I've studied since that last time, so now I'm suspecting that maybe I have sickness bleeding that came before my menses. Then day 16, she's going to say, for sure, all of this is not menses. So I'm going to count that my menses started on the 11th and that I had sickness bleeding for those first 10 days. Then on the 21st, she's going to see that it changed back to week. So now what she's going to do, she's going to say, okay, this 11th day was really my first day of menses. I get 15 days of menses. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This 21st day is the 11th day. Maybe it's still menses. 12, 13, 14, 15. If it stops on the 25th, I'm good. Khalas. 26. Oh no. This for sure cannot all be menses. So now I'm going to judge that my menses was only from the 11th to the 20th, and then my sickness bleeding came back. So I have a case of stronger bleeding that came in between weaker bleedings. And then it continued till the end of the month and stopped. So look there, she bled the entire month there. If you want to be good with the rules of menses, you need to review this several times. Anytime someone's going to teach this, take the opportunity and review it. He says, so in that example, when she's looking back, she makes up the prayers for days 1 through 10. Yes. He says, shouldn't she be knowing by 21 days, seeing the red again, that this is defective since she judged it as weak? Yes, go ahead, please talk.
Assalamu alaikum. It's
Wa
easier
alaikum salam
than
wa
texting.
rahmatullah.
Okay,
Yes.
I was a little bit confused, but as you said, the red blood was 10 days. So when she saw her black blood on the 11th, she didn't know by now that she is sick or anything because she's still within the 15th. On the 16th, she found
Yes.
out that this blood, on the 16th, she found out that this blood now, there's something, because it exceeded 15.
Yes.
So she would say, okay, I will judge from the 11th. My period started from the 11th, from the
Yes.
strong blood, which is black, right?
Yes.
So now when she saw on the 21st that it changed to red, she's still within the 15th. I was a little bit confused, but now I got it.
Yeah.
So
she's still inside the 15th.
She does not judge she doesn't judge it as weak because she's still within the 15th until it passed 15th day, then she will go back to the original. Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Exactly. Amin wa bikum. That's why it's important for this example to go past 15 after 11. Yeah. So on the 11th, let's say that one more time. So on the 16th, then she's going to say, my menses started on the 11th. On the 21st, she's going to notice that the color went weak again, but she's still inside her 15 days. She doesn't have, at this moment, according to our scenario, a reason to see or say this is also Sickness, bleeding. Maybe this is just the rest of my menses now. So then once it goes past day 25, once it goes into 26, and she knows for sure all of that couldn't have been menses. So she's going to say, then my menses stopped on, or went up to the 20th. And because had the bleeding stopped on the 25th, then she would have been fine. There wouldn't have been an issue here. So it's important for this example that the bleeding went into day 26. I think that's clear. If you have any question, let me know. If a woman sees two types of blood, each of them bearing characteristics of strength, then one of the two bleedings would be deemed menstruation because of having more strength than the other. So now we just went deeper. She sees two types of blood. All right, we've already been saying she sees two types of blood. So we're still there, but now we're going deeper because we're now, as they say, moving the goalpost. Each of them bearing characteristics of strength, because there's three ways to gauge strength, right? Color, thickness, and odor. So what if she saw two different bleedings, but both of them had characteristics of strength from some perspective? Then one of the two bleedings would be deemed menstruation because of having more strength than the other. An example is her seeing thick red blood that has odor for 10 days. And thin black blood that is odorless for 10 days. So thick red and has odor. So thick is stronger than thin. Red is weaker than black, although it's stronger than pink. And odor is stronger than odorless. So we have at least two strong qualities out of these three. And then she saw thin black blood that is odorless. So thin is weaker than thick. Black is stronger than all other colors, but odorless is weaker than having an odor for 10 days. So then we see here, by preponderating those, weighing those against each other, the first bleeding has two characteristics of strength, thickness and odor, and the second has only one characteristic of strength, which was blackness. Therefore, the first one is judged as the menstrual blood, and the second is judged as defective. That's so nice. That's how the scholars talk about weighing hadiths and things, and when they make ijtihad and those types of things. It's like they have things by which they deem one more stronger than the other. Then they weigh them against each other. And if they were equal in the characteristics of strength, so both of them were equally strong, such as her seeing thin, black, odorless blood for 10 days. So thin is weaker than thick. Black is stronger than all other colors. And odorless is weaker than having an odor. But then she saw thin red blood that has odor for 10 days. So thin is weaker than thick, and red is weaker than black. But it has odor, which is stronger than being odorless for 10 days. In such a case, each of the two types of blood have one characteristic of strength. So how do we deem one of them as menses? Now, the previous one is judged as menses. This is when the earlier one's going to be menses. So we got used to the earlier one being menses. But then it was rectified for us. There was istidrak there. Yani we were caught before we fell into a delusion that the menses always has to come first. No, it could come in the middle or come at the end. But then sometimes when both bleedings are equally strong, they're not the same, but they weigh the same, then now the previous one is going to be menses. Hence, whatever she sees first is menstruation and the latter is defective. This is really so nice. MashaAllah. A very nice knowledge. If you understand these rules well, then you should You should be able to understand a lot of rules as well. A lot of the knowledge, I mean, because the knowledge goes like that. In such a case, each of the two types of blood have one characteristic of strength, so the previous is judged as menses. Hence, whatever she sees first is menstruation, and the latter is defective. During the first period, the woman does not judge the week as defective until the bleeding exceeds 15 days. If the bleeding persisted, then in the second period and every period after that, she performs the ghusl after the cessation of the strong bleeding, and she prays despite the blood flow, and she does not wait for the bleeding to exceed 15 days to judge the week as menstruation. That's what we said. Because defective bleeding is a persistent malfunction. So what appears is its perpetuity. It means that once she saw a pattern, then she doesn't have to wait for the 15 days. So if you were just with us now a few minutes ago when the sister spoke and we were clarifying, let's go back here. On day 1, she says this is menses. On day 11, she says this is menses, but it got stronger. Maybe my menses came after sickness. On day 25, she says this is menses, as long as it stops here. On day 26, she's going to say, now I know that my menses went up to 20 only. Now, but if this happens again, then she's going to know. Next time, when it's like this again, then on day 21, she's going to take her ghusl immediately. Once that pattern establishes, then she's not going to have to wait. And this time, the first time, she waited because she didn't know. After that, she's not going to have to wait anymore, and she can just take her ghusl as soon as that bleeding turned weak. Let's read that again. During the first period, the woman does not judge the week as defective until the bleeding exceeds 15 days. If the bleeding persisted, then in the second period and every period after that, she performs the ghusl after the cessation of the strong bleeding. And she prays despite the blood flow, and she does not have to wait. How about we say she no longer waits? And she no longer waits for the bleeding to exceed 15 days to judge the week as menstruation, because defective bleeding is a persistent malfunction. So what appears is its perpetuity. Yani, looks like it's defective bleeding. It's enough for her to see that pattern to say it appears to be defective bleeding, and then she'll go like that. SubhanAllah. Because also in the rules of the religion, you take by what appears. So these rules of menses is so astonishing because there's nothing alien here as far as qawa'id are concerned. Don't forget that the vast majority of the details of this vaginal bleeding are by research, not by ayat of Quran or hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Each mujtahid did his own research. So we're just taking Shafi'i school. Look how consistent this is from research and applying religious principles that exist outside of this talk of menses, weighing, proofs. طيب. Wallahu a'lam. Let's stop there. Next time, inshallah, we'll start talking about the woman who cannot distinguish.